My husband is Hindu and he's from India. I can't tell you how deeply frustrating it was when someone sent me this picture of my husband. And this Polish text over here in this picture says that Hindu men have multiple wives. So how should I respond to this? Well, harsh or ugly comments on my personal life are something that I have experienced before. But this time, for me, it really crossed the line. It seems clear that many in Europe, America and elsewhere really enjoy vilifying Hinduism, but then can their ignorance or willful amnesia hide the truth or facts? To start with, around 20% of Americans consider polygamy to be morally acceptable, and the practice of marrying multiple spouses can be observed among Christians and in the Western world. In the USA, multiple protests have been organized in which Christian polygamists have openly expressed their desire to have multiple spouses. For example, in the USA, in Colorado City, Arizona, many white Christians openly practice or support polygamy. And by the way, according to their religious leader, you can't go to heaven and be a god unless you have more than one wife. For many years, these polygamist white Christian communities in the USA have lived in towns or areas in which they have had almost full control. From their church to the government officials of their area, the polygamist lifestyle has touched or controlled almost everyone in these areas. In these Christian communities, polygyny, child labor, and child abuse are common. Besides that, it has been reported that some of these communities have also expelled boys from their own community to create more possibilities for their older men to have multiple wives. Polygamy has a long history in Christianity. Henry VIII, who was the supreme head of the Church of England, was married 6 times. Also, the Mormon Church acknowledges that its founder, Joseph Smith, had up to 40 wives. Among Mormons, there are those who have discontinued the practice of having multiple wives, but there are also several subgroups who continue this practice until today. Even the capital city of Utah State, Salt Lake City, was founded by Brigham Young, a white Christian man who had more than 50 wives. So, what does the Bible say about polygamy? Well, according to the author Michael Coogan, the fundamentalist Mormons who insist that polygamy is biblical are right, in a sense. He adds, if you're going to be a strict literalist, there is nothing wrong with polygamy. And how about the American legal system? Does it allow polygamy? Well, as described here, a loophole can be easily used to bypass the legal system. So what's the loophole? As reported here, popular TV personality Cody Brown is only legally married to his first wife, Mary. All of his other wives have been spiritually married to him. According to Professor Andrew Solomon, in some regions of the USA, multi-partner relationships are already being recognized. For American children, the possibility of having more than 2 legal parents is slowly becoming a reality. Not only that, the Utah State Senate has voted unanimously to effectively decriminalize polygamy among consenting adults. This is a major development. Whether we're talking about men having multiple wives, or promiscuity and sex crimes, or high-risk sexual behavior, societies in the West have it all. Teens for Christ was known for its use of sex in missionary work. In the so-called free love communes of Europe and America, situations have arisen that are not easy to explain. For example, here in this case, a child was born in a European commune and he had no idea which one was his father, as pretty much all of the men had slept with his mother. Any of them could be his dad. Then there are these evangelical Christian polygamists who also have a notorious reputation for underage marriage and domestic violence. Many of these Christians also use the internet to find more wives. This is just one example. There are well-established polygamy movements, as many claim that it is their right to have as many wives as they wish. There are dedicated websites that support polygamy. Here is one example. Then there is this organization, which is working together to bring the truth of Christian polygamy to the churches and beyond. Many polygamists in the West are not so vocal about their lifestyle. But not all can keep it private. For example, it was reported that this Canadian man had 27 wives and 150 kids. In India's Mizoram, a man who was the late leader of a polygamous Christian sect is survived by 39 wives. When he passed away, his wives refused to bury him, hoping that he might be resurrected. As far as my husband is concerned, I would like to clarify that the text that is written in Polish here is a lie and is probably just a silly attempt to ruin my husband's image or that of Hindus. Those two women who are with him in this picture are not his wives. The picture was taken in Malaysia before I had met him, and these two women are probably fellow travelers, friends, or his acquaintances. Stealing my husband's private pictures and disfiguring them to create false stories is probably what our haters like to do, but it won't change the truth. But regardless, cases of polygamy have also been observed in India. Apart from the Christian sect in India's Mizoram, where one man had around 40 wives, there are some tribes or communities in India where the practice of having more than one husband exists. This study confirms that. It is said that the tradition of having multiple husbands for one woman allows them to live more sustainably with their limited means, as dividing property among several sons would leave each with too little land to feed a family. Besides that, the practice also acted as a form of birth control, and it should be noted that for these Indians, the practice of polyandry gave women considerable sway or influence over many matters, making the female voice a dominant voice in such households. Among some tribal communities of India, polygamy is practiced, and it can also be observed among Muslims and some Hindu communities. In India, there is also this controversial Goa civil code that mentions the possibility to marry once again, but it was noted that the provision exists on paper, and since 1910, no one has been given the benefit of it. It's worth mentioning that polygamy is banned throughout much of the world, and the United Nations Human Rights Committee, which has said that polygamy violates the dignity of women, called for it to be definitely abolished wherever it continues to exist. But what can the United Nations really do when around 20% of Americans find polygamy to be morally acceptable? What can the UN really do when hundreds of millions of Muslims across the world believe that polygamy is moral? To end with, a request for our viewers: if you see the misuse of our private pictures anywhere, please feel free to report it to us so that we can take appropriate action. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again.